I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and honestly, I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. My marriage with Lisa wasn't perfect, but I always thought we had a decent thing going. We'd been together for about 8 years, married for 5. She's a smart, manipulative woman, pretty, confident, the kind who knows exactly how to get her way. She's also got a sharp tongue and a tendency to act like she's the victim no matter what. Still, I never suspected she'd cheat on me, not until recently anyway. At first, there were small signs. She started coming home later than usual, often claiming work was stressful or she had some urgent meetings. She'd be on her phone constantly, texting or scrolling through social media, acting secretive. She'd snap at me if I asked about her day, which was unusual because she's usually pretty open. I attributed some of it to her being stressed, but deep down I felt something was off. Then she started spending more time with her friends, going out without telling me much. I didn't think much of it at first, but the gut feeling kept gnawing at me. One night I came home early from work, a rare thing for me, and the house was quiet. Too quiet. I figured Lisa was out, but I also noticed her phone was on the counter, face down. Unusual for her to leave it lying around like that. Normally, she'd be glued to her screen. I picked it up just out of curiosity and saw she had a bunch of messages from someone named Mike. I didn't recognize the number, but what caught my eye was the tone, flirty, suggestive, riddled with inside jokes that clearly weren't about work or friends. My stomach dropped. I felt this cold punch to the gut. I didn't immediately confront her that night. Instead, I spent the next few days watching, noticing more things. She was getting defensive when I asked about her whereabouts, brushing off my questions with bitchy comments or outright lies. She'd say she was at a book club or meeting her sister, but I could tell, even through her fake smile, that she was hiding something. I started digging, checking her social media, her emails, her texts when she wasn't around. I knew I shouldn't invade her privacy, but I couldn't help it. I needed to know the truth. Then I found out about the affair with her supposed friend, but it wasn't just that. It was more complicated. I remembered her telling me she was feeling overwhelmed with life, and I tried to be supportive, but I never once suspected she'd turn around and screw someone else during that vulnerable time. The thing about Lisa is she's always been a good liar. She's manipulative and bitchy, sure, but she's also very convincing when she wants to hide her tracks. It took me a while to put everything together, but once I did, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach all over again. I saw the videos from the security footage at the facility she had been visiting. She's a nasty piece of work, got herself close to a court-appointed guardian, claiming she was there to help me through my mental health crisis. But I learned that she exploited my vulnerability. She was supposed to be protecting me, making sure I was okay, and instead she was screwing around with my guardian, a guy named Harold. I found photos and clips of them together, caught on the facility's cameras during the review of my release. That was the moment everything clicked. It wasn't just a fling, it was betrayal on a level I never saw coming. She used my weakness to her advantage, lied to my face repeatedly, and then when I found out, she denied everything. Classic Lisa. She spun stories about how I was paranoid, how I was imagining things, how I was overreacting because she was stressed. But I knew the truth. Harold, her so-called protector, was just another pawn in her game. She played me like a fiddle, and I felt so stupid for not seeing it sooner. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything I'd seen, feeling hurt, angry, and humiliated. I think that's when I realized I had to confront her, not just for myself, but for the fact that she used my mental health crisis as an opportunity to cheat and manipulate. It's one thing to betray your spouse, but to do it under the guise of protecting them, then turn around and do something so disgusting. Using a guardian meant to keep me safe, made my blood boil. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The trust was shattered, and I was finally ready to face her, even if I dreaded what was coming. The night I finally decided to confront Lisa, I was a mess. My nerves were shot, and I kept replaying everything I'd found. I didn't sleep much, and when I did, I kept waking up with nightmares, visions of Harold and Lisa together, laughing, touching, betraying me right under my nose. I kept telling myself I needed to stay calm, but inside I was raging. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and dangerously close to just losing it altogether. When she got home that evening, she was her usual bitchy self, snippy, dismissive, quick to dismiss my questions. I knew I had to do it then. No more tiptoeing around her bullshit. I called her into the living room, and she rolled her eyes but came anyway, leaning against the doorframe with that damn smirk she always wears when she's about to lie her ass off. Lisa, I started, keeping my voice as steady as I could. We need to talk. I've seen everything. The messages, the videos, the photos. I know what you've been doing. With Harold, with Mike, whatever your game is, just tell me the truth. I want to hear it from you. She looked at me with that fake innocent look, her lips curling into a sneer. Oh, Jake, you're overreacting. You're paranoid. I don't know what you're talking about. You've been under a lot of stress and maybe you're just seeing things. Stop. I cut her off, voice rising. Don't lie to me. I've got the proof. I saw her with Harold. I saw her sneaking around, lying to my face, exploiting my trust. How long has this been going on? Since when were you screwing around with him? Or Mike, or whoever else? She scoffed, rolling her eyes. Seriously, Harold, that's just some guy I met when I was volunteering at the facility. He's not special. And Mike, he's just a friend I was talking to. You're imagining things because you're insecure. Maybe you need help, Jake. Maybe you're the one who's got the problem. That was it. I saw red. No, Lisa, you're the one with the problem. You used me when I was at my lowest. While I was sick, vulnerable, you were out screwing around with Harold behind my back. You're disgusting. You lied, and I'm sick of it. Her response, she shrieked, you're crazy, I've done nothing wrong, you're just jealous because I spend time with other people, you're manipulative just like the therapist said. That was the last straw. I felt my fists clench, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to shake her, to scream at her, but I held back. Instead, I told her this. Get out. I don't want to see your face anymore. I want you gone. And don't bother trying to deny it, you've been caught red-handed. She looked furious, her face twisting in rage. You're overreacting. I'll leave when I want. You're just jealous, insecure, and you don't want me to have a life outside of you. That's why you're blowing this out of proportion. I couldn't believe how vile she was being. Her words, her lies, they all seemed to come from some twisted place of manipulation. I knew she'd throw everything she could at me, try to make me doubt myself, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I told her to leave, and she finally stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. I just stood there, staring at the door, my mind racing. I felt a sick mixture of relief and despair. Relief that I finally knew the truth, but despair because I'd lost my wife, my partner, someone I'd trusted for so long. The betrayal cut so deep. I kept asking myself how she could do this to me, how she could exploit my vulnerability, turn my own trust into her weapon. That night I sat in the dark, feeling every emotion possible: anger, sadness, confusion, and a sense of emptiness I'd never felt before. I kept wondering if I was strong enough to move past this, or if I'd be stuck forever mourning what I thought was a real marriage. I'd become a fool, trusting her, believing she loved me. Turns out, she was just a manipulative bitch playing her game behind my back. In the days that followed, everything felt surreal. I was angry at her, disgusted even, but I also felt this horrible sense of betrayal that lingered deep inside. I started to realize the extent of her lies, how she'd used my mental health crisis as her opportunity to cheat. It made me sick to think about how she exploited my weakness, how she spun stories to cover her tracks, and how she played the victim when I finally caught her. I knew I had to do something, but honestly I didn't know what yet. I was too raw, too betrayed to think clearly. All I knew was that I couldn't stay in the same house with her. I needed space, time to breathe, and a plan to deal with everything she'd thrown at me. The trust was gone, permanently broken. I just didn't know how to move on from this mess yet. After she left that night, everything in my life seemed to spiral. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and my mind kept racing with 1,000 different thoughts. I kept replaying every moment, every lie, every betrayal, like a broken record. The worst part was the feeling of being completely helpless, like my entire world had been turned upside down in a matter of days. I'd trusted her for so long, And now I realized how deeply she'd lied to me, how she'd exploited my mental illness for her own selfish reasons. I started thinking about what I needed to do next. I knew I couldn't stay in the house with her anymore. That place felt contaminated with her lies, so I made a decision to move out temporarily just to get some space and clarity. I called a buddy of mine, Mark, who's a bit of a tough guy but also a good listener. I told him everything, and he told me to take my time to be smart about whatever I planned next. But deep down, I knew I wanted more than just leaving her. I wanted to make her pay for what she did. The hardest part was figuring out how to confront her again, or if I even should. I was angry, yes, but also hurt. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, used, manipulated, exploited. I remembered her bitchy attitude, the way she always played the victim when her lies were exposed. That made me realize I'd never get a sincere apology from her, not after what she'd done. She's the type who'd twist everything around, spin new stories, and blame me for everything. That's how she works. Over the next few days, I gathered evidence, screenshots of the messages, the photos from the security footage, everything I could find that proved her affair. I wasn't planning to just walk away and pretend nothing happened. No, I wanted her to face the truth. I wanted her to know I wasn't some fool she could manipulate anymore. One day, I decided to go back to the house and pack up my stuff. I couldn't stand being there, surrounded by her lies and her scent. I grabbed a duffel bag, filled it with some essentials, and then I waited for her to come home. When she did, she looked surprised to see me. I kept it cool, not giving her the satisfaction of seeing me break down or get angry. Instead, I told her I was leaving for good, that I couldn't stay with someone who used and betrayed me that way. She sneered and spat out, "You're overreacting, Jake. You're making a huge deal out of nothing. Just another one of your mental episodes. I'm tired of your paranoia. You're the one who's unstable." I stared her down. "No, Lisa, you're the one who's unstable. You're the one who used me when I was at my lowest. You're the one who cheated, lied, and manipulated. I found out everything. I saw Harold, I saw the messages, I saw the videos. You're done, I'm done." She laughed, a cold, bitter laugh, and then she started crying fake tears. "You're just jealous, you're insecure, you're crazy. I was only trying to help you. You're so ungrateful." That made me furious. I snapped at her, "Help me. You exploited my mental health, Lisa. You used my vulnerability to get close to Harold and screw around with your little affairs. You're disgusting, and I want nothing to do with you anymore." I grabbed my bag, turned around, and walked out without looking back. As I drove away from that house, I felt a strange mixture of relief and rage. I'd finally taken control of the situation, but I was also deeply wounded. I'd lost my wife, my partner, the person I thought loved me, and I knew it was only going to get messier from here. I had no illusions about what was coming next, but I was determined to get some peace. In those first days of separation, I kept thinking about how someone like Lisa could do this to me. I'd always been the trusting type, and she was the crafty one. She knew exactly how to manipulate my kindness, my depression, my vulnerabilities. She played me for a fool, and I hated her for it. But I also hated myself a little for ever trusting her so blindly. Still, even with all that anger, I knew I couldn't let her win completely. I had to figure out my next move, whether to fight for some kind of justice or just accept that she was gone for good. The truth was, I was a mess. But I also knew that I'd never let her get away with what she did. That was the first step. I had to start rebuilding, even if I didn't know exactly what that looked like yet. I just knew I couldn't stay in this living nightmare forever. The days that followed were a blur. I moved into a small apartment, just enough space to breathe, to think. I kept replaying everything, trying to piece together what I'd missed, how I'd been so blind. The betrayal cut so deep, but now I had clarity. Lisa had been planning this for a while, playing her games behind my back while I was vulnerable. That realization made me even angrier, but also more determined to get some form of justice, or at least closure. I started digging through everything I could find: emails, texts, social media messages. I had to understand how she manipulated her way into Harold's life and how long she'd been doing this. What made it worse was how nonchalant she was about her lies, always quick to spin a new story whenever I asked questions. That bitch was good at covering her tracks, but I was good at searching, and I refused to let her get away with this without a fight. One thing I knew for sure, I had to confront Harold. There was no way I could let this go without getting some answers. I wanted to know what he knew, what he thought, and how deep this really went. So I reached out to an old friend, Mike, who was a private investigator. I explained the situation, and he agreed to look into Harold, dig up some dirt, maybe even find out if there was anything more going on. I didn't want to just brush this under the rug. I needed to understand the full scope of her betrayal. Meanwhile, I also sought some professional help. I could keep going like this with my mind racing and my emotions all over the place. I found a therapist who specializes in trauma and betrayal. Sitting there, spilling out everything that happened, I realized how much damage Lisa had done. But I also learned that I wasn't alone, and I didn't have to carry this weight by myself. That was a small comfort. One evening, Mike called me with some shocking news. Harold had a history I never knew about: multiple affairs, shady dealings, and a record of exploiting vulnerable women. He wasn't just some innocent guardian protecting me. He was a predator and a manipulator just like Lisa. It made my blood boil. Harold had played a role in this entire mess, and now I had the proof to tear his reputation apart if I chose to. I also discovered that Harold had been involved with Lisa for months. Their affair was detailed in messages and photos. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone. She lied to me to my face while she was screwing around with someone like Harold. That thought made me nauseous. I felt like I'd been punched again, but this time by her and Harold together. They exploited my trust, my weakness, and now I was left to pick up the pieces. With this newfound information, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her game me anymore. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions. I wanted her to know I was serious. I planned to send her a message, no, a detailed letter telling her everything I knew, exposing her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. I was waking up and I was coming for her. In the meantime, I started to rebuild my life. I talked to friends, leaned on family, and focused on my healing. I realized I had been a people pleaser, always trying to keep the peace, but now I saw that I needed to stand up for myself. This was about more than just her cheating. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my sanity, and my self-respect. One night, I sat down and wrote her a letter. Not a long, emotional rant, just a straightforward account of everything I'd uncovered, everything she'd done, and what I was going to do about it. I told her I knew about Harold, about the lies, about how she used my mental health against me. I told her I was done, that I wanted nothing more to do with her, and that I'd be taking legal action if necessary to protect myself and my reputation. Sending that letter was oddly cathartic. It was me finally taking control of the situation, laying everything out bare. I didn't expect any response from her. She was too narcissistic to admit she was wrong, but I needed her to know I wasn't going to be played anymore. That night I felt a strange mixture of relief and resolve. I was hurting, but I also felt a flicker of hope that I could survive this and maybe even come out stronger on the other side. Now I'm at a crossroads. Part of me wants to fight for justice, to make her pay for what she did. Part of me just wants to move on and forget her completely. But I know I need to keep fighting for myself, for my mental health, and for whatever peace I can find. This betrayal has changed me, but I refuse to let it define me. I've learned I have strength I didn't even know I had, and I'm going to use it to finally close this chapter of my life. It's been a few weeks since I sent that letter, and honestly, the whole process has been like riding a roller coaster I didn't sign up for. Some days I wake up feeling like I've finally taken back control, and other days I'm drowning in memories of her betrayal. The worst part is that I keep seeing her face in my mind, that bitchy smirk she always had when she was lying to me or trying to manipulate a situation. I don't miss her, not really, but I hate how her betrayal has left me so broken, so unsure of myself. The legal side of things is moving slowly. I've started talking to a lawyer about restraining orders and possible civil suits. Honestly, I don't care about the money. I just want her to be held accountable in some way or another. She thought she could screw around while I was vulnerable, use my trust against me, and walk away like she's the victim. That's not how this ends. I want her to understand that her actions have consequences, and I want her to pay in some way, even if it's just exposing her for what she really is. Meanwhile, Harold's reputation is taking a hit. Mike's investigation unearthed a lot of dirt, shady dealings, past affairs, exploitation. I've been thinking about releasing some of that info, but I'm not sure if that's the right move. Part of me wants to see Harold humiliated, just like Lisa was exposed, but I also know that revenge might not bring me the closure I need. Still, knowing what Harold is really like gives me some sick satisfaction. I picture him sweating, trying to explain himself, knowing that I have enough dirt to destroy him if I wanted. That said, I've been focusing more on myself lately. Going to therapy helped me process some of the anger and sadness. I started working out again, rebuilding my strength, both physically and mentally. I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought, and I refuse to let her or Harold define my future. I think about how I let her manipulate my depression, how I let her use my vulnerabilities to get what she wanted. I won't do that again. From now on, I'm putting myself first, no matter how much it hurts. 1. Thing I realized is that I was codependent for a long time, trying to keep things together, trying to fix her, trying to be the good guy. But you can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed, especially when they're so intent on lying and cheating behind your back. I've started setting boundaries, learning to say no, and most importantly, learning to trust myself again. That's the real victory here, realizing I don't need her or Harold to be happy. I need to rebuild my life on my own terms. I also reached out to a few friends I drifted from during the marriage, people who saw through her lies, who warned me she wasn't who she pretended to be. Their support has been invaluable. One of them, Sarah, told me something I keep holding on to. You're not your mistakes, Jake. You're the guy who got hurt, but you're also the guy who's going to come out of this stronger. Hearing that made me realize I shouldn't let her and Harold's actions define my self-worth. Sometimes I still get angry, especially when I think about the time she exploited my mental health to cover her tracks. That was a low blow even for her. But more often now, I feel a strange sense of relief, like I've finally woken up from a nightmare. I see her for what she really is, a manipulative, selfish bitch who thought she could get away with anything. I want her to know I see her now and I won't be fooled again. I'm not sure what the future holds. I know I want to rebuild, to find someone who genuinely cares, who won't use my vulnerabilities against me. I've learned some tough lessons about trust, about who to keep close, and about protecting myself. I'll admit it's scary, starting over at 40, but better late than never. What I do know is that I'll never let anyone exploit my kindness again. I'll be cautious, smarter, more aware. And I'll keep pushing forward one step at a time, even if it hurts. Most of all, I want anyone reading this who might be going through something similar to know you're not alone. It hurts, it's devastating, but you will survive. You will come out the other side, maybe broken but stronger. You just have to keep fighting, because sooner or later the truth catches. Up to everyone, even manipulative, bitchy wives who think they can get away with betrayal. And when it does, the lies fall apart and the real healing begins. Now, as I sit here and reflect on everything, I realize how much this mess has changed me. I used to think marriage was about trust, about sharing your life with someone who genuinely cares. But Lisa showed me that sometimes, the people closest to you can be the ones who betray you the most. She exploited my weak moment, hidden behind her bitchy arrogance and lies, and Harold just played his part in that sick little game. I've come to see her for what she truly is, a manipulative, selfish woman who used her supposed role as my protector to get what she wanted. The worst part is knowing how much I trusted her, how I let my guard down because I wanted to believe in the best of her. Now I know better. Trust isn't something to give lightly, especially to someone who's proven they'll stab you in the back. The process of reclaiming my life has been brutal, but it's also been eye-opening. I've learned that I am stronger than my depression, my betrayal, and my heartbreak. I've been rebuilding piece by piece, working out, seeing a therapist, reconnecting with friends who saw through her from the start. I've realized that I don't need her approval. I don't need her lies to define who I am. What I need is to keep moving forward, one day at a time. I don't forget what happened, and I won't pretend it didn't hurt, but I refuse to let her keep controlling my future. I've set boundaries, cut out toxic people, and started focusing on myself. I've learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a flicker of hope, a chance to rebuild, to heal, to find happiness without the shadows of betrayal looming over me. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know that some lessons only come with pain. That pain, though, has made me wiser. It's taught me not to take trust for granted, to listen to my instincts, and to stand up for myself when someone tries to manipulate me. I've realized that the worst betrayals often come from those you love most, but that doesn't mean I'll let it break me. If anything, I'll let it make me stronger. To anyone out there dealing with similar betrayals, whether it's a cheating spouse, a manipulative partner, or a loved one who's exploited your vulnerabilities, I want you to know that you're not alone. It hurts, it's a long road, but you can come out on the other side. Trust takes time to rebuild, and sometimes it's okay to walk away and start fresh. Your worth isn't defined by their lies or their betrayal. It's defined by how you choose to heal and move forward. I'm not perfect, and I still have days when I feel broken, but I also feel hopeful. I feel like I'm finally taking control of my life again, reclaiming my peace and dignity. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm not going to let her or Harold, or anyone else, take that away from me again. I've survived the worst, and I've learned that the real strength lies in rising above it, in choosing yourself when everyone else might try to tear you down. This chapter is finally closing, and I can breathe again. Maybe someday I'll find someone who truly cares, someone who respects me for who I am. Until then, I'll keep focusing on healing, on trusting myself, and on making sure that no matter how much I've been hurt, I never lose sight of who I am. That's the real victory. That's what I'll carry with me. The knowledge that even after being betrayed so deeply, I can still stand tall.